I texted in the family group chat. Flight lands at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up? My brother replied, "We're busy. Try Uber." My mother added, "Why didn't you plan better?" I typed, "No worries." My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. 6 weeks earlier, my husband collapsed overseas. A brain aneurysm. Fast, brutal, final. I flew to a country I'd never lived in, signed forms I barely understood, and buried the man I loved while my family sent thumbs-up emojis and advice about travel insurance. I told myself they were scared, awkward with grief. But the day I came home after 30 sleepless hours, they proved it wasn't awkwardness. It was apathy. The airport buzzed. My cart's wheel jammed. The suitcase burst open. His sweater, his running shoes, the tie he wore when he asked me to move in spilled across glossy tile. An employee knelt whispering, "I'm so sorry." A stranger's kindness made my chest crack. My family's chat lit up again. Dinner plans, work meetings, a weather warning. Nothing about me, the Uber at home. $78. The house was dark, breath white cold. They were supposed to set the heat. They forgot. The fridge empty except for gray fuzz and sour milk. They were too busy to stock basics. I kept my coat on, curled in a chair, tried to sleep under a wall of wedding photos that suddenly felt like evidence for a life the universe had erased. Morning, a sound like a throat clearing. Then a roar. Water through the ceiling, down the lights, across the floor, a burst pipe. I waded to the valve, fingers burning on icy metal until it turned. The damage was everywhere. Buckled wood, sagging, drywall flickering power. The storm outside howled. The plumber said Tuesday. It was Friday. I called my brother, host in the background. Laughter, clinking glasses. "Tonight's bad timing," he said. "The guest room's full of craft stuff." He suggested I try a list online. I hung up and called my parents. Fridge club, bad back. Insurance will cover a hotel. My mother chirped like I hadn't spent our savings burying my husband on the other side of the planet. I was so tired I could taste metal. I tried the breaker in the basement. Flip touched the panel. Electricity punched my arm. The world went dim. I woke on the concrete with a warm trickle down my face and the air too thin to breathe. Upstairs, the carbon monoxide alarm began to scream. I crawled. I didn't make it. I passed out on the living room sofa. Phone inches away. Heat off. Wet floor chilling my bones. The last thing I remember was someone pounding on the door and a voice. My neighbor calling my name. They broke it down. Firefighters, paramedics, lights painting the ceiling, red hypothermia, carbon monoxide, concussion, a nurse with steady hands and eyes that didn't look away. When I said, "I buried my husband alone," she wrote everything. She made sure someone listened. A reporter was at the hospital covering storm injuries. He heard a paramedic say she asked her family for a ride from the airport. They told her to Uber. The neighbor spoke on camera. She'd noticed water pouring out the door. That I looked hollowed, getting out of the car. By 10 p.m., the segment aired. Local woman returns from overseas funeral. Nearly dies alone in flooded frigid home. Screenshots of my family chat. My request. Their replies. Blurred names, but clear enough. They came running. Then my brother first, Ash Gray. "They're making it sound like we abandoned you." My mother perfectly qua outrage. "This is a misrepresentation." My father quiet by the window counting the tiles like they held a script. The doctor explained my discharge. I needed warm food. "Someone with me 48 hours. My mother jumped in. "She'll come home with us." Her voice syrup sweet for the staff. The nurse looked only at me. "Are you comfortable with that?" she asked. "Because there are other options." For a beat, the room went silent. I heard my husband's voice from some gentler year. "You can't change them, but you can choose." The social worker listed what the community had offered. A hotel suite for 2 weeks. Meals, rides, a grief group, a plumber, and restoration team donating their work. "No performance, no strings, no busy," my brother hissed. "You're picking strangers over family." My mother's smile trembled. My father watched the floor. I signed the papers. I chose the hotel. I chose warmth that didn't demand a thank you post. On my way out, I opened the family group chat. I typed 2 words, the last they'll ever get from me. Words they taught me to say every time. They left me bleeding. No worries. I texted in the family group chat. Flight lands at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up? My brother replied, "We're busy. Try Uber." My mother added, "Why didn't you plan better?" I typed back, "No worries." My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. 6 weeks earlier, my husband collapsed overseas. A brain aneurysm. Fast. Brutal. Final. I flew to a country I'd never lived in, signed papers I barely understood, and buried the man I loved while my family sent thumbs-up emojis and tips about travel insurance. I told myself they were awkward with grief, but the day I came home, I learned the truth. It wasn't awkwardness. It was apathy. The airport buzzed with strangers hugging loved ones. My cart's wheel jammed, my suitcase split open. His sweater, his shoes, the tie he wore when he asked me to move in spilled across the glossy tile. A stranger knelt to help, whispering, "I'm so sorry." That cracked something in me because my family's chat was lit up again, with dinner. Plans, meetings, weather warnings, nothing about me. The Uber home cost $78. The house was freezing. They were supposed to set the heat. They forgot. The fridge? Empty. Gray fuzz, sour milk. I kept my coat on and curled in a chair, staring at wedding photos that now felt like evidence for a life the universe erased. Morning. A sound like a throat clearing. Then a roar. Water gushing through the ceiling, flooding the floor. A burst. Pipe. I wrestled the valve, burning my hands on icy metal. Damage everywhere. Buckled wood. Sagging drywall. The storm outside howled. The plumber said Tuesday. It was Friday. I called my brother. Music and laughter in the background. "Bad timing," he said. "The guest room's full of craft stuff. Try an Airbnb." I called my parents. "Bad back. Fridge club." "Insurance will cover a hotel," Mom chirped like I hadn't spent our savings burying my husband. I was so tired I could taste metal. I tried the breaker in the basement. A spark. Pain like fire shot up my arm. The world went dim. I woke on concrete. Blood trickling down my face. Upstairs, the carbon monoxide alarm screamed. I crawled. I didn't make it. The last thing I remember, pounding on the door, my neighbor's voice. Then lights, red, white, blue, firefighters, paramedics, hypothermia, concussion, carbon monoxide poisoning, a nurse with steady hands and eyes that didn't look away. When I said, "I buried my husband alone," she wrote everything down. She made sure someone listened. A reporter was at the hospital covering storm injuries. He heard a paramedic say, "She asked her family for a ride. They told her to Uber." The neighbor spoke on camera. Screenshots of the chat aired on the cane. 10 p.m. news. Local woman returns from overseas funeral. Nearly dies alone in flooded, frigid home. By midnight, my family came running. My brother first. Pale. "They're making it sound like we abandoned you." My mother. Syrup sweet for the staff. "She'll come home with us." The nurse looked at me. "Are you comfortable with that?" "There are other options." For a beat, silence. I heard my husband's voice from some gentler year. "You can't change them, but you can choose." The social worker listed the community's offers. A hotel suite for 2 weeks, meals, rides, a grief group, a plumber, restoration work, free. No performance, no strings. My brother hissed, "You're picking strangers over family?" My mother's smile trembled. My father stared at the floor. I signed the papers. I chose warmth without conditions. On the way out, I opened the family group chat. I typed 2 words, the last they'll ever get from me. Words they taught me to say every time they left me bleeding. Story. At my ex-wife's wedding reception, her new family surrounded me. "Why are you even here?" her brother sneered. "She's moved on to a real man." They all laughed and pointed. But my 8-year-old son suddenly grabbed my sleeve. "Dad, we need to go now. Something bad is going to happen. Trust me, Daddy." I nodded and started heading for the exit. Then suddenly, it happened. Chapter 1. The invitation I should have ignored. I wasn't supposed to be here. The only reason I'd shown up to my ex-wife's wedding reception was because of our son, Liam. He had been asked to be the ring security boy. And despite everything between his mother and me, he wanted me to see him in his little black suit and sunglasses. The venue was a luxury banquet hall. Chandeliers sparkling, a string quartet in the corner, and servers gliding between tables with champagne flutes. I kept to the back, hands in my pockets, trying to blend in. That's when they came. Her new family, the groom's brother, cousins, even the father, all circling like vultures. "Why are you even here?" Her brother sneered loud enough for nearby guests to turn their heads. "She's moved on to a real man," another cousin added, smirking. Then came the laughter, mocking, sharp, designed to cut deep. I stayed silent. Years of swallowing my pride had taught me that sometimes words were wasted on people who didn't want to hear them. Then I felt a small hand tug on my sleeve. It was Liam. His face was pale, his eyes darting toward the far side of the hall. "Dad, we need to go now," he whispered urgently. "Why? What's wrong?" I asked, bending down. He swallowed hard. "Something bad is going to happen. Trust me, Daddy." The conviction in his voice sent a chill through me. I nodded, my instincts screaming. I took his hand, started toward the exit, and then it happened. Chapter 2. The Shatter. We were halfway to the glass doors when it hit. A deafening crack. For a split second, the entire reception froze. Then another crack and the sound of glass, exploding overhead as the huge chandelier above the main table came crashing down. Screams filled the hall. Guests dove under tables, champagne flutes smashing against the marble floor. The chandelier's impact shook the room, sending silverware clattering and the quartet scrambling for cover. I turned just in time to see the twisted mass of crystal and metal lying exactly where the bridal party had been sitting moments earlier. Except my ex-wife and her new husband were still there. Blood, broken glass. The groom clutching his arm, his white suit splattered red. My ex's perfect hair tangled with shards of crystal. Security rushed in, followed by a few men in dark suits who clearly weren't part of the catering staff. They moved with military precision, scanning the ceiling, checking exits. Beside me, Liam clung to my leg, eyes wide. "See, Daddy, I told you." Something in his voice wasn't just relief, it was knowing. And that's when I realized Liam hadn't guessed. Something bad would happen. He'd known. Chapter 3. Liam's Secret. Outside, the winter air bit at our faces as I pulled Liam away from the chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, ambulance, maybe even Fury trucks. I crouched down to his level, gripping his shoulders. "Liam, how did you know that was going to happen?" He hesitated, chewing his lip the way he did when he was afraid to tell the truth. Then his voice came out in a whisper. "I heard them last night. Mom, her new husband, and some man I didn't know. They were in the kitchen. I was supposed to be asleep, but I got thirsty, so I went to get water. They were talking about how it would be poetic if you got hurt at the wedding." My heart froze. "Me? What do you mean?" Liam's eyes watered. "They said they paid someone to make the lights fall during the toast, but they didn't know where you'd be sitting. And Mom's husband said, 'Doesn't matter. If he's not there, maybe someone else will take the fall.'" I felt the blood drain from my face. They hadn't just been mocking me earlier. They'd been making sure I was in place. A slow, cold anger settled in my chest. I pulled Liam close. "You did the right thing, buddy. But now Daddy has to do the right thing too." In that moment, I knew I wasn't going to the police yet. This wasn't just going to be about justice. It was going to be about ending them. Chapter 4. Quiet moves. I dropped Liam off at my sister Claw's house before heading back toward the reception. Not to walk in, but to watch from a distance. Paramedics were loading my ex-wife onto a stretcher. She was wailing, not from injury, but from rage. Her new husband barked into his phone, pacing like a caged animal. The man in the dark suit from earlier stood beside them, scanning the crowd with the weariness of someone who had something to hide. I didn't need to get closer. I had enough to start. That night, I called an old friend, Marcus, ex-military now, working in private security. The kind of man who could find things the police wouldn't or couldn't. Need a quiet job? I asked. Depends, he replied. Is it legal? Not even a little. A pause, then a low chuckle. Send me the names. While Marcus began digging, I played the long game. I stayed silent. Didn't post on social media, didn't talk to mutual friends. I let them think I was either too scared or too humiliated to act. Meanwhile, Marcus uncovered everything. The grooms, gambling debts, my ex-wife's offshore account in the Cayman Islands, the contractor they'd hired for the chandelier job, a washed-up stunt rigger with a rap sheet longer than my arm, and the most interesting piece, they'd used the groom's company funds to pay him. That last one was gold, because the groom's company wasn't just some small firm, it was a government contractor, the kind that couldn't afford even a whiff of scandal. Chapter 5. Setting the Trap. The key to revenge is patience and the element of surprise. Marcus's intel was a goldmine, but I didn't want to just hand it to the police. I wanted them to destroy each other. Step 1 was planting seeds. Sent an anonymous package to the groom's company's compliance department, a neat little folder with copies of offshore wire transfers, casino surveillance stills, and an invoice from our chandelier contractor. The cover letter review immediately. Possible embezzlement and fraud involving government funds. Step 2, I went after my ex-wife directly. From a burner phone, I texted her a single photo, her Cayman account balance page. Underneath it, I typed, "I know everything. You'll be hearing from them soon." Step 3 was my favorite. Marcus arranged a chance meeting between the chandelier contractor and one of the groom's business rivals, a man who loved nothing more than watching others implode. A small payment and the promise of immunity, and our rigger was suddenly eager to talk to everyone. By the time the wedding video went online, complete with the chandelier crash, local reporters were sniffing around. The contractor sang like a bird to cover his own skin. And his first line to the press was, "They paid me to make sure someone got hurt." The dominoes were falling exactly where I wanted them, and I was just getting started. Chapter 6. Public Collapse. It started on a Tuesday morning. The groom's company's front doors were plastered with a giant under federal investigation notice. 2 unmarked SUVs idled out front. Inside, agents and windbreakers carted out boxes of files and hard drives. By noon, the story was everywhere. Local businessman under investigation for fraud, money laundering, with a blurry still image from the chandelier crash looping on every news channel. My ex-wife's face was in it, screaming, caught mid-fall, eyes wide with fear. She called me, block number, but I knew it was her from the tremble in her voice. "You did this. You think you're clever, but you've ruined everything." I stayed silent for a beat, then said, "No, you ruined everything. I just made sure everyone saw it." Her new husband was arrested a week later. She wasn't charged at first, but when investigators traced her Cayman account and found the missing funds, the cuffs went on. Meanwhile, I filed for full custody of Liam. With both of them facing felony charges, the court didn't just grant it. The judge said I was the only stable guardian in this child's life. The last time I saw her was in court, shackled, makeup gone, eyes hollow. She mouthed something at me. Maybe please. Maybe sorry. I didn't respond because in that moment I realized the real revenge wasn't the investigation, the headlines, or even the arrests. It was walking out of that courtroom hand in hand with my son, knowing she would never hurt us again. Epilogue. The lesson. Months later, life felt normal again. No whispered insults from her family. No pretending for appearances. Just me and Liam rebuilding. We moved to a quieter neighborhood. I got him into a better school, one with a music program he loved. He started playing the guitar every evening on the porch, the same way I used to. Play for him when he was little. The case stayed in the news for a while. Her ex-husband took a plea deal, and she got 3 years for fraud and conspiracy. The night the verdict aired, I didn't feel the rush I thought I would. It wasn't victory, it was closure. One afternoon, Liam asked, "Dad, was it worth it doing all that?" I looked at him and said, "Son, sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure they can't hurt you or anyone else ever again." He nodded, strumming a soft chord. And for the first time in years, the air around us felt light. In the end, I didn't just win, I got my life back. I got my son back. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below. Like the story. If you think this story is justified, share it with someone who needs this energy and subscribe to Lauren's story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning and every betrayal finds its shadow.